Welcome to a new season and a new year of Mountain Sliver Garage. It's the 24-25 season. The 25 Arctic Cats are just landing. I'm at the Edge Power Sports in Draper, Utah, and picking up my new 858. Not only that, we're here, we're gonna weigh, I brought my 24 9R. We're gonna weigh them both wet and with dry, and see where they both come out. It's really nice knowing how much a sled weighs, but how much does a sled weigh compared to the competition? Well, we're gonna find out today the 9R compared to the new Arctic Cat 858. All right, went and picked up this 25 Catalyst 858 at the dealer. I was gonna weigh both these sleds at the dealer when I was there picking this up. Had everything to do it, but their shop, it was so loud and there's so much stuff going on, I decided just to bring them to the Mountain Sliver Garage and do it a lot more conducive to making a video without a bunch of stuff going on in the background. And I wanted to compare these two sleds this year because I think they're probably the two closest sleds out there. And I picked these two particular sleds to do this weigh-in with because these two sleds are about as close as you're gonna get, apples to apples to get. Both of them have the standard monotube shocks, no piggyback shocks. They both have the standard gauge. They're both manual start, no electric start, so there's no battery in either one of them. They both have belt drive. Polaris has had the quick drive belt drive for quite a few years now. Arctic Cat just came out with their belt drive on their sled this year, so it'll be really interesting to see how that works out. We know Arctic Cat's dropped a bunch of weight off this sled from the previous Proclimb and Ascender chassis. We just don't know exactly how much. And then how does that compare to another snowmobile, and that we already know is already light, which the lightest sled on the market right now is the Polaris. So we're gonna compare these two. The other two things where I picked these two particular sleds was they both have their manufacturer's lightest track that they make. For Polaris, it's a 2.75 inch track, and for Arctic Cat, it's actually, their 3-inch track is actually lighter than the 2.6 track by almost about 12 pounds. And so these are the two lightest sleds each of these manufacturers make in a 155 track length. So we're gonna weigh both of these, see how they compare, and really. All right, so now we got our 25 Catalyst 858. If you look, I've drained all the oil out as much as I can get. Pretty empty. Over here, I moved. Nice thing without the Arctic Cat gas tank, you can actually see down on the bottom. I don't know if you can see down, but you can. It's pretty dry down there. So all the fuel out, all of the oil out. So really dry weight. And so we're going to weigh this and just kind of see where it comes in at. I've zeroed the scale out with these straps on it, so the straps don't weigh anything according to the scale. So let's lift this up. All right, so we're at 429.8 pounds, which is pretty phenomenal. I mean, that's really super light for production dry weight. All right, now we're back here to the Catalyst. Fill the whole thing up with gas and oil. So I want to mention one thing, in the spec sheet that Arctic Cat set out earlier in the year on all their 2025 snowmobiles, they had the dry weight on the snowmobile of 424 pounds, which I got a dry rate, I'm going to round to 430. That's really close because their weight doesn't include coolant. They say their coolant capacity is 4 quarts. It's about a gallon, or water is about 8 pounds per gallon. So that puts us really within a pound or two of what Arctic Cat set out for a dry weight on the sled. So really good weight on the dry weight. Now we're going to go back and weigh this thing full of gas and oil. Our oil's full right there all the way as far as you can get it. And if I come over here with gas, you can see the fuel down in there. Now see where we're at. Come over here. You can see we're at just under 500 pounds, 499, 498, kind of fluctuating back and forth as the sled kind of rocks back and forth. 499 pounds, we're going to call that the wet weight on this sled, ready to ride, 154 3-inch track, manual start, monotube shocks, pretty phenomenal. I mean, Arctic Cat has lost a ton of weight on this sled. Now we're going to go on and we're going to rate the 9R and see what. All right, got our 24 9R, 155 track, 2.75 lug, drained all the gas out of it, got all the oil out of the 2-stroke container, and we're ready to weigh this. Still has a coolant in it, so it's not completely dry, but it's as dry as we're gonna get it with just the gas and oil out. So All right, I'll have to wait for the 424 pounds. That's really light. It's about 6 pounds less than the Arctic Cat was. Really nice. It's about the exact same height of 23 9R last year, and that's almost identical to what my 23 was. So I know that's pretty correct. So I weighed my 23 about the same time last year, and it was almost the exact same weight. So, all right, we got our 24 9R again. We filled it up with gas, filled it up with oil. We're gonna go weigh it, see what it is compared to the Arctic Cat Catalyst now that it's full, ready to ride. Let's take a look at it so you can just see that everything's full. Now we'll come around over here to the oil all the way to the top. There really isn't any. All right, lift this up. We got 497 pounds. I mean, really good. Both sleds under 500 pounds. Was about 6 pounds lighter dry, and it's a couple of pounds lighter wet. I am not really sure how much gas the Arctic Cat holds. In a number of the places online, it says it holds 10.5 gallons, but on the spec sheet, it's showing that it only holds 9.4 gallons. So I got to see how much gas it really holds, whether it's 10.5 or 9.5, because a 9.5 gallon tank is pretty small. And I ride pretty hard, and I ride long days, and so I mean, even the 10.5 gallon tanks, I have to pack gas pretty much every trip. If that thing only has a 9.5 gallon tank, I have to be figuring out something else for gas for the catalyst. All right, now I want to finish up this video by going over a few things of why I think the Catalyst is going to be a really great mountain sled. Some things that kind of get a little bit overlooked, but some stuff that Arctic Cat did when they designed this chassis that I think are really going to make it stand out and be really good in the deep snow. Those three things are the approach angle, or increasing the efficiency of the track with bigger wheels, and snow evacuation through the tunnel. So let's talk about the wheels first. So everyone knows for a while now, Arctic Cat's put these big 10-inch wheels on the back of their snowmobile. And what big wheels do, these came about back in around 2005 or so, a big rear wheel became popular. Because what happens is your rubber track bends around this wheel as this is turning. It takes energy to bend that rubber around this and keep that moving. And the bigger this is in diameter, the less energy it takes to bend the rubber around the wheel. And so that's why this is Polaris's wheel, which is a 7-inch wheel. This is an Arctic Cat wheel, which is 10. So this is going to take more energy or more power for your motor to bend the rubber around a small wheel than it is around a big wheel. So that's the back of your sled where this, but no one really talks about the front of the sled. This is Arctic Cat's driver that they use on the Alpha. It's a 7-tooth, 3.5-inch pitch driver. This driver is a little bit more than 7 inches in diameter. And so it's also not as big as this 10-inch wheel, but it's pretty big on the front. This is Polaris's driver. They use a 6-tooth, 3.5-inch pitch driver. This is about 6 inches in diameter. So you can see not only on the back of your snowmobile, Arctic Cat have a more efficient system, but on the front where the track comes around the front on the drivers, they have a more efficient system. So those two things right there combined together really going to give your snowmobile a little bit more efficiency, uses less power to turn the track around in deep powder. So that's the first thing, is the efficiency with the track that Arctic Cat's going to have an advantage of just because of its driver and rear wheel size. Okay, now the next thing is something that's not really talked about much, is the track approach angle. Track approach angle is the angle that your track comes off of with the horizontal ground as the track comes around the drivers in the front as it goes down to the bottom of where the rear suspension is. We're going to show you that on both snowmobiles, and the flatter that approach angle is, the easier snowmobiles is going to be to get up on top of the snow and not trench and dig the snow out and leave you high and dry up on your running board. So let's look at the approach angle on both of these snowmobiles, measure them, see what they are, and then we'll talk a little bit about it. All right, so now we're down here on our 24 Chaos 155 9R, and we have the track coming off the drivers right here. Now this angle where the track comes off, I've kind of tried to draw a line on it so you can see it a little bit better. That's the approach angle, the angle from here to the flat ground. And what that does is the flatter this angle is, allows your snowmobile to crawl up on the snow without trenching. So if we take this and measure it, we're gonna try and put our measure kind of real even with that straight line on the track there. And we get just over 30 degrees, about 31 degrees. That's a pretty steep track angle in the world of snowmobiles. And so let's go over and we'll measure the track angle on the Arctic Cat and see what it is. And then we'll talk a little bit about how those two things compare. We're down here on the Catalyst 154 3-inch track, 858 model, the brand new 25 that just came out that we weighed earlier. And you can see our approach angle here already, just looking at that, looks flatter. And this is our approach angle that we took from the Polaris, just a little over 31 degrees, and we put that up there. You can see how much flatter the Arctic Cat approach angle is than the Polaris. And if we measure, take this down and measure, there, we're gonna come in at about 15 degrees, so almost half the approach angle of the Polaris. So what's gonna happen, this snowmobile, instead of chopping down all the snow here, it's gonna climb up on this snow easier. And that's gonna give this snowmobile just a little bit of an edge in deep powder. It's gonna be able to go a little bit faster, a little bit better without trenching and riding up here on your running boards without the snowmobile sinking into the ground. The next thing we're gonna talk about is how well snow moves through your tunnel. Your track is always gonna be throwing snow up inside your tunnel in a mountain sled, and it's gonna have to be evacuated out the front. So we have our sled turned on its side. We're gonna look up the back of the tunnel, back in this area here, and this is actually tapers from here up to the front of the sled, how much space there is. So all this snow gets into this big space here and it gets more and more compressed as it goes to the front. That's pretty much on all snowmobiles. We're gonna measure how much space there is at the very front between the top of the tunnel and the track, and then at the front of the tunnel and the bulkhead. All right, so we have a tape measure stuck up through the track up there. And if you look clear up there, we're about 3/4 of an inch tunnel clearance. Now I have our sled turned up on our side. This is the same Chaos 2.75 inch track. Now all the snow that's pushed up into your tunnel from the back up to the front has to come out pretty much right here in this space. The more space you have right here, the easier it's going to be for all that compacted snow to evacuate out the front here. So if we measure that with this track, with 2.75 inch track, we have exactly an inch of space. Not bad, but you have to remember also that this snowmobile comes with a 3¼ inch track. So a 3¼ inch track, which probably most backcountry guys where I ride get, you only have a 1/2 inch space here to evacuate snow. That's just not enough. What's happened, all that snow is going to bind up here, and it's going to take more horsepower to push all that snow through this little space. And so now we have our Arctic Cat on its side, and we're going to do the same two things. We're going to look up under the tunnel, see how much room we have. I have a ruler up in there. A little bit less than 2 inches on the Arctic Cat. And the Arctic Cat has a 1/4 inch longer track, a 3-inch lug versus a 2.7 lug that the Polaris had. So quite a bit more room. All right, now we've come up to the front of our track on our Arctic Cat, and we're going to measure the distance we have between this 3-inch lug track and our tunnel here. We've got just shy of an inch, maybe like 7/8 of an inch. We not only have more room between the tunnel and the top of the track in this, we've got more room on the front of this track than we did on the Polaris to actually move snow and evacuate snow through here. All right, so let's just sum this up. So weight-wise, ready to ride, these two sleds are almost identical, a pound or two difference, which is pretty phenomenal. Two sleds that are exactly the same. With one unknown with these two sleds is, since the 858's a brand new motor, we don't know how well it's going to perform. We know how well the 9R performs. It's pretty phenomenal. The 858, we still have to wait and see. We think it's going to be really good, but we don't know. The other thing we showed you was, as far as this sled, the Arctic Cat being efficient getting through the snow with its lower attack angle, with its ability to have more room to move snow through the tunnel, and its larger wheels in the back, it can probably move through using less power and be more efficient. That way, being able to get more power to the track and be able to move your snowmobile forward faster. That will probably give you a little bit of an edge over the drivetrain on the Polaris. but we're going to just have to wait and see what happens this winter. It's going to be really fun having these two sleds out. I'm glad you've joined us on Mountain Sledder Garage. Please subscribe and like the video, share them with your friends. And got a lot of snow piling up in Utah and Colorado right now. It's just mid-November, so the season's looking really great so far. And we'll see you next time at Mountain Sledder Garage, and have a good winter.